Welcome to Filmmakers Feedback, a program brought to you by Film Scoring Tips. I am Giovanni Rotondo and I will be your host for this series. The episodes are available as podcasts on all the major platforms and in video form. Make sure you visit filmscoringtips.com to find more info about that. The mission of this show is to better understand the relationship between filmmakers and composers and to find ways to increase one's chances creating long-lasting professional bonds. In today's episode, filmmaker Iria Pizania will discuss many topics with me. Among them, how to shape the About section of a composer's website and why communication is always key. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the show. Iria, thank you so much for coming. I'm very happy to have you.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me today.
There is a question I always ask to my guests, which is, what kind of filmmaker are you? Because as you know, filmmaker can mean lots of different things.
As you say, filmmaker means a lot of different things. I try my hand at different things. First and foremost, I'm a producer and a director. So I take ideas and then just try and put them on screen. I've directed quite a few short films. I've produced more. So even when I'm directing, I have the producer hat a little bit there, and when I'm producing, I'm thinking a lot about the visuals and about the creative aspect of things. So I guess I'm trying to be an all-round.
Curse or blessing?
Blessing, I think. I think the more things you can understand about filmmaking, the better. Then as a producer, being able to not just think, this is my budget, these are the relationships that I'm building to bring in the crew, but also why does the director need that? And why does the writer write X, Y, and Z in their script? So I think it's definitely a blessing to have a holistic view and approach.
I agree with you. I'm thinking of I had some experience as a music editor in Los Angeles, and even though I'm a composer, I'm not a music editor, to know how to do that and how they do that and how the music editor I'm working with on the particular project, what he can do, what he can't do, it's a blessing.
Yeah, no, as a director, when a producer tells me, and I've produced most of the things that I've done, but I've, when a production manager tells me, a line producer tells me, oh, we can't do X, Y, and Z, because I have been in their shoes, I don't immediately go in a position of, oh, why? You're saying that just because you want to save money.
Right.
I just think, why are you saying that, and how can we meet in the middle? Obviously, I want to preserve my vision, but at the same time, what's the solution we can find? And similarly, as a producer, I'm working with other directors, and I'm thinking, why are you, if you're thinking something needs to be in a church, because that church symbolizes something, but I can't get you that church. What does it symbolize, and how important is it for you? Because if it's 100% important, it's the most important thing, we'll make it work. But if it isn't, what can we do to make things work?
Right.
So, having those two things. It can be difficult when I'm directing and producing at the same time, because I might be on set as a director and thinking, do you know what? We need to move because I can't get that location again tomorrow.
So if you were only the director, maybe you would somehow try to get more time, but you don't.
But I don't, yes.
Do you also write?
I used to. Sometimes I do. I understand how scripts work, but I don't consider myself a writer. I mean, I understand scripts, but I'm not a writer.
What is the task that you perform, that when you perform it, you enjoy the most yourself during the...
See, that's the hardest question so far, because with the film that we're going to be discussing later, I spend a lot of time in my own space creating how it was going to look and what it was going to be. I had the script from the writer, and I was, I spent that creative time. I have my creative side, and I really enjoy the quiet time, visualizing things. And I have a background in fine arts, and so all of that, I really find myself. But when things come together as a producer, and I pitch it to somebody, and somebody says, you know what, I love that idea, and thank you so much for, thinking of me, or whatever it is, being able to bring in a collaborator that is going to elevate the project gives me so much pleasure.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So, because I don't think anybody wants to join a project just because. And I'd rather work with people that want to work with me and with my other, partners in whatever capacity that is, rather than somebody that's just gonna come in, do a little bit, and just disappear.
Right.
So I enjoy that discussion and then bringing the right team together. But I also enjoy my quiet time of building
research,
a world.
Basically,
Yeah,
like internal research.
Yeah.
Do you have music playing during that phase?
Usually, yes.
And is it like, I'm sure you have playlists, or is it like, what kind of music do you, does it depend on?
It depends on the project.
The project, right.
So my own musical tastes, that the music that I listen to when I'm not in a sort of filmmaking creative mode, or when I'm in a producing mode, is going to be very different to when I'm directing. So when I'm directing, I tend to listen something of the genre that I'm working on, just because it helps put me completely in that world. I do this crazy thing that I try and I literally don't leave my room. I live off cereal and milk.
Oh, wow.
Because I can't be bothered to spend an hour cooking.
How long? Like usually?
I mean, now, it depends on life's other responsibilities.
Right, of course, yeah.
But if I could
just,
if I didn't have anything else to do, as long as it takes for me to just get out of it. I mean, I imagine I can do that for 2, 3, 4 days, maybe a week, and then I'll probably run out of supplies.
Run out of biscuits.
Yeah. But I kind of like the idea that I'm in that world. I don't get out of it, and I don't get distracted, and
It's like method acting.
A little bit.
It's
a little bit.
Method producing.
Method producing, method directing.
Yeah.
That's in my directing space. Music-wise, sometimes I like quiet, but sometimes, for example, with a horror film, I might listen to other horror film soundtracks. I might listen to. It depends on for a horror, it depends. If it's a suspense.
Do you remember like one particular piece or soundtrack that helped you in this case?
Not with this one.
Okay.
I remember the poster on YouTube, and it was terrifying. Can't remember which one it was. But it was a compilation of things, and there was other composers that have, things that I don't necessarily know, but they would have put something, that kind of atmospheric mood, music, whatever. But I remember with my previous film, Tout un Point, I was constantly, a lot of it was a very dreamy, it is a magic realism film, and had a lot to do with dance. So I was listening to a lot of classical music because it's ballet. So I was listening to a lot of those kind of things. And the one before, I was listening to, those musical carousels that kids have, those little toys that can be terrifying, actually.
Yeah, true. Especially when they're slightly out of tune.
Yeah. Oh God, yes. So that kind of thing. And I try to just put myself in that sort of space.
Has any of the things you listen for recreation bled through your work?
Most likely the folk. South American and Cuban and Mexican, Ivory Coast with Cesaria Evora, Fado has a little bit. Potentially, it's not in the films, but in the way I'm sort of.
I can imagine licensing must be.
Yeah, God no. Yeah. But I mean, I wouldn't ask a composer, please do that. Also, I don't want to do that anyway. A composer is an artist, and they have, I think I'd rather leave people do the thing that they know best. it's a collaboration, so I'm not going to tell them write that. But I don't think you'll see in any of my films something that you'd say, oh, I can totally recognize what you said about fado music or what you said about, I don't know, whatever it is.
So you have worked on many different genres. You have done horror recently.
Yeah.
You have done was a romantic kind of drama-y right before. I'm wondering, was the experience with composers very different from one genre to the other?
It was a little different. I wouldn't say very different because I think every project is different.
And it was different composers,
yes,
right?
Yeah. So every time has been a different composer.
Right. And what can you isolate one or two elements where it was different and how was the experience?
I think it all comes down to communication.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one in a couple of films, I'm not going to say which film or which composer, but I would have something very particular in mind that I couldn't explain. I couldn't express. And I couldn't articulate. I couldn't find, because I'm not musically trained,
of course,
I couldn't find the way to explain what I was looking for. And so we got to a point where I was thinking, okay, this part, but earlier in the film,
mm-hmm.
and then take that part and put it somewhere else in the film, because this is what I'm trying to create. This is what I enjoy about what you've done in the music, and this is... So, and then with another composer, I literally just said, here are my suggestions, these are my thoughts, this is how I'm picturing it.
Before the work.
Just let me know what you think and what you can do. Literally, the first sample that he sent me, that was actually with Tutu and Pon, I'll say that. The first sample that he sent me is the main theme of the film.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Which was a brilliant experience, I thought. And he said, yeah, I'll just put something together very quickly and I'll let you know. And a couple of hours later, just get this and thinking, this is exactly the feeling and the tone I'm looking for. Obviously, we had, it needed to be
of course. So
worked on, obviously.
Expanded, but
exactly.
It's a rare one, though.
Yeah.
Did you look for composers specifically known for that genre when you did horror, for instance? Did you go and look for horror music composers, or you were open to? I was
very open. I'm always very open because I think the way I move from, wearing hat to hat and doing various different things. And, I directed a horror and a pseudo horror before and a magical realism before that. And I produced a suspense thriller and I produced a very human story, a drama. So I move from genre to genre. And I think a composer might want to do the same. So, and also I believe that people bring things from their, if you've worked mostly in horror and now you're thinking, actually, I want to do this, children's drama. You might not have a lot of experience in it, but if I see that you're prepared and if I see that you're really honestly keen, I think you might, horror and children's drama might not be the right example.
It's a new thing.
But you see what I mean? You might bring things in that somebody that has been doing the same thing again and again and again doesn't necessarily have.
Yes, I totally respect that.
What I find a lot more important is to communicate that. If you tell me I don't have a lot of experience in that particular area, but this is the research that I've done and these are my thoughts, and I appreciate that I don't have the expertise, but this is what I can bring, I'm more than happy to consider and ask for a sample for that particular story. Experiment a little bit and see what a new voice can bring into what I'm thinking.
That makes sense. Let's say there's a composer that wants that either that sees one of your films online and wants or at a screening and wants to get in touch with you because he or she really likes your work and would like. What should this person, and you haven't never met this person, what should this person do to get your attention the right way without scaring you out?
So I had that quite a lot with Tutu and Pont because we established an online presence and we had a lot of quite a good following, especially on Facebook, a bit of Twitter, because we're doing a crowdfunding campaign as well. So people were expressing their support and their interest in the film, and I had quite a lot of people messaging through Facebook, or my email is pretty much out there, so people were emailing as well. And I had the same with actors, but the ones that stood out, and I actually took the time to respond and say, yes, I've just listened to your work potentially in the future, are those that didn't just send me a blanket email that said, "Dear Sarah, Madam," or even "Dear Iria, I am a composer and I work there and this is my credits list. Thank you very much." I'm pretty sure everybody can spot a blanket email miles away. So so I think the ones that caught my attention are the ones that said, "Hi Iria," or "Dear Iria," or whatever they want to say. "Hi Iria, I'm a composer and I just watched your work and I really liked blah, X part of it. And this is what I've done, and I think it sort of matches, what you're for and what you're up to and what you're doing. And it would be great to keep in touch and let me know when you're doing your next project, and potentially I can send you something that is not just
cold
and you haven't really done your research. Even if you that sort of email tells me you haven't seen the film.
Right.
You have seen that there's a good Facebook following, so you're thinking, oh, there's something for me to jump on board to, but I don't really know what you do and, how we could work together. Just take those 5 minutes. I mean, my films are, the ones that I've directed are all shorts. The longest one is 13 minutes, so it doesn't take that long.
Yeah, it's. I see what you're saying, but also, it's good that that the person contacting you really wants that.
Yeah.
For a reason.
Yeah.
So and yeah, you can tell. Okay, so the person gets your attention. You click on the website's link. What is the first area of the website? What is the first area you visit, you look for, actually? What the first element? Chances
are they're about section. So a little bit about them. Mostly because I don't know, you might have noticed so far that I'm very much about the collaboration and communicating and the relationship that we can build. So I'm trying to see a little bit of who you are. If it's a credit list is a credit list, and you might be the most amazing composer, but if I can't quite, and I'm saying that, but also I could go for the most experienced one at some point. It depends on what's best for the film.
Right.
But I think I'm going to go to the about section to see who you are, and would we be able, especially thinking as a director, would we be able to communicate and see eye to eye before we even meet? And then I would look at credits, and then I would listen to samples, or maybe I would listen to because it's very quick to skim through credits.
Right.
Whereas with a sample, I'd like to spend some time.
Let me go through those three.
Yeah.
In detail. The about section. First question might sound weird, but bear with me. Do you prefer first person or third person? Like Giovanni is award-winning, whatever, or I am a drama composer?
I don't know.
Can you? And I know you didn't you didn't know about this question, but it's
no, I don't know.
Try imagining and simulating. What would you? Which one would?
I think the first person
would
better.
Would be better. Okay.
I think so, but that's personal.
Yeah, and that's
and the
what
reason
I want,
why is because I feel like we're having already a little bit of a discussion there.
Okay.
A little bit. At the same time, I don't like writing my own bio. So when I even write my own thing, I talk about myself in the third person because I'm a lot more at ease doing that. So I appreciate that it's not the easiest thing to do. It depends on what you write. If you lead with, "Hi, I'm Giovanni," or "I'm Iria, and I have, I'm an amazing composer or producer with these excellent credits, and I know X, Y, and Z," I'm thinking, okay, you're just bragging and you're not really telling, I'm not really getting it. If it's a personal note, then I think it's an I am. Or if it's the more, it's a lot more professional in a sense, and more detached if you go for the third person. Say, so Giovanni is an award-winning composer for film and TV with credits ranging from, I don't know, adverts to feature films, and that becomes a bit of the bio that I'm actually
that you are expecting that is there on every website.
Yeah, but I kind of like the idea that I'm going to see a little bit of character, and I'm just saying,
no, that makes
if you look
sense.
at my website, it doesn't have that.
Okay.
Because I'm just, I just can't do it.
Not to self, change to. Well,
No, I don't
mine too
know.
is in third person, but.
I'm sorry. I'm sort of thinking as I'm talking, because I'm thinking.
No, it's fine. That's actually, that's what I want with this show. It's to ask questions that you wouldn't expect in a way, but that you give me your first.
If it's honest, if it's an honest short paragraph of who you are and what you're trying to do, I like to see the personal thing, the I am. But if it becomes this clunky, I try to write in the first person, but actually I can't. Mm-hmm. And it just becomes, hi.
If it screams uncomfortableness.
Yeah. And
maybe better not.
Maybe better not.
But it makes sense, yeah. It is quite in line with what one of my previous guests, Paolo, said. He really liked feeling some personality in the bio. He didn't care for. And would you have it long or short, or which one?
Not too long.
Not too long.
Not too long.
And
couple of paragraphs max.
Would you be surprised or impressed by a couple of credits within the bio?
Yeah, possibly. I'd say, it's a little bit about this whole of it's like name dropping.
Right.
Oh, I worked with X. And then, okay, amazing. I have no idea what you did with X, but I know X. So I'm thinking...
You have my attention.
Yeah, you have my attention.
And then we go to the credits list at this point. There too, there is a point in the career of every composer that you have a good number, a good chunk of credits. Would you list them all? Would you just select a few?
I would just select a few.
In what criteria? The question really should be posed in another way. Which one would grab your attention? One you would like. Which credits would it be? The ones with actors that you know, with directors that you know, movies that you might have seen?
I think all of those things are important. So if somebody has worked on I'm not even entirely sure what the hierarchy is, but as assisting a big composer in a massive Hollywood film, then immediately put it there. Because immediately what that tells me is that if you're thrown in if you're thrown in the deep, you can survive and you can do a good job. You know what the language is, you know how to work. But I also know that, you have the connections in terms of the musicians, in terms of that can help the project.
Right, you have the network.
And you can come in as a collaborator. Mm-hmm. So it goes again back to what I was saying earlier, that you're not just a hired gun, you're a collaborator. So, because I consider music to be part of the storytelling, although, it needs to, it can't overshadow it, but it supports it. It definitely supports it. So if I see you as a hired gun, it's a bit of a difficult scenario. So I'm thinking of you as a collaborator, and I'd like you to, make it work, however it works for you. So if you have worked with this massive studio, I'd like to know that. And at the same time, I expect and I imagine that in order for you to get to that stage, you have worked on if I'm not working on a massive studio film, you have done all of that. So you know how to navigate it. Makes sense. So you have the experience of both worlds.
Right.
I wouldn't put necessarily the obscure short film that you did at some point, if you have reached that level.
Right.
it depends on how much you do per year as well. Like if you do, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 things per year. I don't know, but if you do, then I wouldn't go a decade ago and put that little thing that you were
Right.
still learning, because if it was a big film and if you've been doing these massive things for the last decade, 100% leave it on. It's a little bit like IMDb.
In a way, yeah, it's
A little bit, yeah, and a lot of it is IMDb won't have what's not going to be on a director's IMDb are the little things potentially that they did years and years ago.
Right.
Just because IMDb didn't exist in the same way. So if we're talking about 15, 20 years experience, I think the most recent, the better. But again, every creative and every person knows what is their best work.
But it could be different what they or we think it's our best work, and what especially somebody that works in another role might perceive as best.
Yeah.
So so it's very interesting for me to know what
I think
in the mind of a filmmaker can be.
I think the other thing, what I'm saying about your best work is, if I asked you, if I said, oh, let's go back to the horror example, and the majority of your work is in drama, family dramas or whatever it is, and you've done one horror that is like years and years ago, I might want to ask you to listen to that thing.
Right.
Or watch the film, and I don't know where I can find it, and will you be proud enough to send it to me?
It's a good question, and if the answer is no...
If the answer is no, then maybe you should leave it off your website.
That's a very, very good piece of advice, Cool. And once you've read the credits, you're on board, but there's the final test, which is hearing the music. First of all, do you go to the showreel or to the playlist if both are present? Like just music or music with pictures?
Probably showreel.
Okay.
First, and then I would just sort of go SoundCloud or whatever and listen to more stuff. Sort of close my eyes or just stare at something and listen to the music. But I think I would see how it all pairs. It's all paired up with
the pictures.
With the pictures.
And one of these questions where please answer without thinking too much.
Okay.
How long into the showreel do you hit the stop button?
See, I won't hit the stop button. I would skip forward.
Okay.
But I'd say the whole thing shouldn't be more than a couple of minutes.
All right.
Potentially even less. I mean, it depends on. It's hard with music.
It's a tough one. With music, it's a tough one. But
but
I hear you.
I would put it a couple of minutes. The thing is, if you've caught my attention in those couple of minutes, I will go back to SoundCloud or whatever it is and listen to more of your work. But I'm not going to sit there for 5 minutes watching and trying to see where you're at.
Right.
I'd say a couple of minutes, and then link, maybe even in that showreel, link easily to other similar things or whatever.
Do you think a composer should be on social networks and be active and build a social life?
I think it helps. It's not for everybody, in the sense that some people are more comfortable being on social media and uploading things all the time and, building a following through social media. And some people aren't, just naturally. I think it's helpful. It's definitely helpful. Having a social media presence and having a lot of people listening to your work can't hurt. But it needs to be constant and it needs to be consistent. So it needs to be a strategy. So this is how I'm going, I'm looking for work. This is how I'm going to get it. I'm going to find the producers and the directors that I like, and I'm going to speak to them, and I'm going to have my work out there so they can look at it and potentially, find collaborators through that. But it needs to be consistent, and it needs to be a brand. It's not, I don't think it's just I'm here composing.
Meeting,
Yeah.
drinking hot chocolate.
Yeah. It needs to be a brand. You know, somebody can have 2 Instagram accounts, and you can have your work account and your personal account. You can have 2 Facebook accounts. You can have 2 Twitter accounts. And so, I mean, it can be very hard to manage it all because it's just constant overload of information. But if this is something that you're willing to spend the time on, I'd say go for it, but be very, very focused on what you put out there in the world. It's your live CV. So I don't think it's crucial, but I think it helps.
Do you follow any composer on social media?
I think a couple. Can't remember, but there are times, because I'm not great on social media.
Okay.
I might upload something now and then I'll forget, and I'll get too busy and I'll be thinking, I'll do that, but actually I need to focus on what I'm doing and go back in my bubble. Mm-hmm. So I'm not great, but there are times where I'm thinking, oh, I met this producer. I'm just gonna, this composer. I'm going to follow them, mm-hmm. and then I'm going to listen to their work and then see who they follow as well, because if a composer trusts that composer, then they clearly have a better mm-hmm. instinct than I do. So I'm just going to try and follow it a bit of their suggestions.
Right.
But I don't remember the top of my head. I follow you.
Yeah, that's very good, very good. I hope you're enjoying the show. Please visit filmscoringtips.com to find additional resources for this episode. Look for the area labeled Labs if you would like to help us shape our content in the future, and to send us tracks that we will review with our guests on future episodes. To find more about this and to understand what I mean, stick around for the next segment. Alright, so for this episode, it's the first time we have a video clip instead of just a script, which mm-hmm. is something I'm very excited about. Thank you so much for providing it.
Of course.
And the response with the audience was heartwarming. We had lots of entries, and I selected a few. We'll see how many we can fit in the episode. But let's start with the first one, which is by Marcelo Contreras.
Okay.
And his website will come up on the screen as we watch.
Fab.
What do you think, without me talking?
It has, for me, and based on what I said earlier as well, I think there's a lot of music, and there are a lot of different elements to that music, but because it's wall to wall, and it is, as you were saying earlier, it's thematic, and I feel like that kind of, it tries to build the tension, which I think it does. What I don't get is and that's me, and obviously I know how the film ended up, but this woman is alone in an office, and I already have another element that takes me out of, there is absolute peace and quiet in the beginning, there's nothing there, but actually there is something there because I can hear all this music, so it takes me a little bit out of that.
And I should mention that we didn't give this. You decided,
yeah,
and I think it was a good call not to give any direction
Yeah.
in this particular experiment. So
Yeah.
of course that's part of the why it's interesting.
I really what I liked about it is how it builds its tension. I think in a longer film, if we had something before
Right.
that,
they would
to
have-
start establishing it a little bit more, then that could have worked very well. There are a lot of elements in the score, in the composition itself, that's a personal taste thing. I would prefer it to be, scaled back a bit. I think in a longer piece it could work very well. Because it's just a minute, I didn't get that opportunity to connect with that character. I just went straight into something's gonna happen. Something's happening.
I think, these are great notes, and a composer could take them home and change the piece and make it work to the scene.
The idea is that she's alone in that office.
Right.
And she has no idea that something's going on. So if we start introducing musical elements that might give that away, it becomes a giveaway before something's happened.
Right, yes.
So that's why I'm thinking maybe if we had a bit more in the, not music, but footage, more film in the beginning, just a little bit, just establish that void, that could have worked, because it does build up.
Mm-hmm. And I think there was, I'm going to tell you one thing I did notice. There was a missed opportunity, which is towards the end when she sees the message and thinks, it's
a prank.
And the music that doesn't stop there. So in a way, the music doesn't allow you to fall for the trap that Iria is setting up to the poor viewers. By the way, I was terrified when I watched it. The viewers should know that because of you, my 3-year-old is obsessed with dancing right now. She's seen Tutu and Point once, and she's obsessed with dance. So you have a way of really giving the audience your vision.
Thank you.
But yeah, the missed opportunity. I think it's going to be interesting watching the next ones.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk more about that. So the next one is by Joel Frias.
What?
Right, so this, you saw in the beginning how it is quiet and everything's calm, nothing's happening. I loved how he started introducing, I imagine it's Joel started introducing elements. So the first time she gets that photo on the computers, there's a little bit of almost like there's a bit of a draft of air where something's there but not there. And then Joel did what you said at the end about dropping the music just before, when she sees the note and before the big scare, or when she just thinks it's a prank, and we as the owner's like, oh, okay, so it's comedy, it's not nothing's happening.
Right.
So that was good. However, he sort of faded. I still say he. However, Joel just faded the music, which I thought it would have been better if it just dropped.
Okay.
Because it's a sudden realization.
In that moment, you
In
mean?
that moment. It's a sudden realization of something's happening.
Okay, so
it's not a...
you would have, there are times when you want to be bold
Yes.
with your
Yeah.
entrance or exits.
Yeah. And then the other thing, which for me, I personally found it a bit distracting, was the piano notes. I first felt that they came in a little bit too early when she's still in the office, before she even has gone to the kitchen, before really anything is going on. Because there's a build up in... I don't know how many times you saw the little ghoul, because it's several that it appears there in various bits. So, and then I thought, you know what, I can get on board with the piano notes, but it carried on even downstairs as the intensity was growing. The piano, which was a little bit more soothing and calming and suggested something was going on, stayed there. So I thought it was a little bit too much. I would have taken that out or something like that. But I think Joel captured a lot closer the feel of it.
The spirit
of it.
That's great. I think, honestly, from your notes, Joel, if this was a real situation, Joel would, take the notes in the studio and probably in half a day send you the finished thing as you envision it. So I would say well done.
Very well done.
Yeah, I think
without notes, without the script, without anything, it was very well done.
Before we watch, we have time for one more. Before we watch the one that was sent to us by Giulia Lesnici, who was on the show twice already. She's a...
Oh, wow.
You'll see she's a very talented composer, and thank you, Giulia, for sending another piece. Did you guide your composer? I should have asked you to bring the finished piece. It would have been interesting to see it. But anyways, did you ask your composer to have a drop in that part where she sees the message, or did the composer?
I think I did.
And did the composer?
I think he did it.
Okay, that's.
I think what happened was I explained what the story was, shared the script, and then explained what that our hero's journey is. Mm-hmm. So I think he sort of got it, what should happen with that. And it was interesting because I hadn't thought of it as a comedy at all, and he just told me at that point that, it's quite funny how that happens then it just brings it back, and I'm like, okay, great. So it was a true collaboration. It was brilliant working with Guillaume. And yeah, I don't remember. I don't think I did.
That's interesting. Cool. Let's go to Giulia's piece. What?
Julia's in the middle of the other two, isn't she? Because she's done the music from the beginning, which I don't know why it works a bit better than the first one. I'm not sure whether it was the different instruments or the different tone, whatever it was. It was a little bit. It worked for me a little bit better. Although I would still go with was it Joel? The second one was. I would still go with Joel's initial introduction. I loved how bold she was and dropped the music completely, the sound completely, the minute our character reads the little note. So she got that. And all three of them, and Julia as well, got the increase in intensity. And as we go, just add a bit more and bit more. I think it was a bit too rich for me in terms of the various elements. There is a bit of piano and there is some, I don't know what
it's
is
a
it?
violin. It's a violin effect.
Oh, is it a violin effect?
Yeah, it's like ricochet, I think it's called. It's when you drop the bow and make it bounce.
Okay. Oh, okay. So that. No, but there was that and there was something else as well. Because that was the second thing I was going to say. There is a little bit of there was that, it might be, there were a few too many elements for me. So I think in that case, to be honest though, I preferred to start with that and scale it back and say, you know what, that's a little bit too much. Let's lose this, let's lose that. Let's think about this. Than the opposite. Potentially because I don't have the language, I can't explain what you need to add.
Right. But
I can explain the feeling that I would like.
Yes.
But if I hear it, I'm quite good at understanding what I don't like, which I appreciate is probably not very helpful.
No, actually it is a, as for everything there are the two methods. One is the addictive, one is the subtractive. Yeah. It's a very valid way of proceeding. Sometimes I do that with orchestration. Like I orchestrate a piece, I go back the day after and I start taking out stuff. Yeah. The brass too much. Yeah. Go and stuff like that. I appreciate.
But I did like the boldness of it.
Yeah.
A lot.
And I think it's very interesting to see how the three took different approaches.
No, I love that. I really, really love that because there are three slightly different interpretations. But you see, so going back to if one person had sent me those three interpretations, they're all slightly overlapping.
Right.
So I might think, because they started to they started a bit of a crescendo, they go to a crescendo at the end and they have that intensity growing and they have when the first picture shows up, there's a bit of a musical element. When the second time there's another musical element, something that comes up and just adds to the story. So if somebody had sent me those three, I'd say, okay, we're in the right track. This is what I like about this version and this is what I like about that version.
The elements and do some...
Because they're quite similar.
Before we say goodbye, I'd like to know, what are your next projects? What are you working on now? What are you...
So I'm currently producing 2 shorts. One is a dark comedy, so there's a lot of sort of funny elements to it, but it's dark. It's a dark comedy.
Is it the first for you, dark comedy as genre?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, it is. And the other one is a drama, but it's a pretty heavy drama, and it's with a child actor as well. So, which is definitely not a first. I've directed and I've produced with child actors as well, so it's almost a little bit in my comfort zone. And directing wise, I will be working again with the same writer, and I'm planning on doing 4 more 1-minute shorts in the next year, or maybe more. We'll see, depending on the two bigger projects that I'm working on and other bits and bobs that I'm working on at the same time. But I'm planning on keeping my director's hat on with short projects, so I'd love to collaborate with a lot of different people. That's
cool. Is there one last piece of advice, one tip you would like to give composers out there listening to us?
I think the first thing, can I give 2? Can I cheat and give 2?
Please do.
So the first one would be, don't abandon your craft and what you do. It needs work and it needs to keep at it, and it can be quite hard in today's world keeping at it, but do. And the other one is, when you get any commission, when you get any job, on a short, on a commercial, on a feature, on a TV episode, on a web, whatever it is, on a vertical Instagram thing, make sure you communicate and you talk with your director from moment one. See what they do and research them. Make sure that you're on the same level, you're on the same page. Otherwise, it can be a very, very difficult. It can be a very difficult experience for both.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Iria. It was lovely to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks for taking the time to listen.
That's our show for today. Amazing guests are joining me on the next episodes. One way to be updated on the podcast's programming is to like and follow our Facebook page. Type facebook.com/filmscoringtips on your browser to find it. Now go create something special. I'll see you soon.